I don't know if you've seen the news headlines lately that apparently the BBC has released a video showing that there were secret letters revealing that John Paul II had a friendship with, get this, a female. That's right. And so now the international media has jumped on this story with all of the maturity level of a TMZ intern, pretending that this is some salacious scandal that's going to rock the foundations of the Catholic Church. Well, what are the facts here? Well, the woman in discussion is named Anna-Teresa Tymieniecka. Now, she's a Polish philosopher, and what she has in common with John Paul is that they both survived the Nazi occupation, and they both were very interested in philosophy. Now, her teacher in philosophy was a guy by the name of Roman Ingarden. Now, Ingarden's professor was a guy by the name of Edmund Husserl. Now, Husserl was the founder of modern phenomenology. Now, his contemporary was Max Scheler, who John Paul II wrote his doctoral thesis on. Now, all this, long story short, is that there's a very few number of people in the world who are really concerned and interested in this subject, but Anna-Teresa and John Paul were. They began a correspondence it was about 1973, before he was Pope, and she helped him translate some of his work into English, including a book he wrote called Person and Act. Now, she was a married woman, and in these letters, you read them, he's always, how's your husband? How are the children? God bless you and your family. You're in my prayers. There's nothing romantic in these letters. So what's going on? Is this a problem that John Paul had a friendship with a woman? John Paul actually sent hundreds, even thousands of letters to women, to wives, to mothers, to even children. In fact, one woman he wrote letters to for 55 years, hundreds of letters. Her name was Wanda Poltaska. Now, this woman also survived the Nazi Holocaust, and when she was about 40 years old, she was a mother of 4, John Paul discovered that she had an intestinal tumor, a cancerous tumor, and so John Paul wrote another letter, but this one to Saint Padre Pio, telling him, would you please pray for this woman that she would be healed? When that letter was delivered to Padre Pio, he listened to the letter read to him, and he said, this one cannot be refused. And sure enough, her tumor was miraculously cured. And when John Paul wrote a letter back to him thanking him for this miracle, all he said to the man who delivered the letter was, keep those letters. One day they're going to be very important. And many years later, he became Pope John Paul II. And John Paul isn't the first person that's been attacked for having female friendships. There's another religious leader you may be familiar with. His name is Jesus Christ. And he had some close friendships with a particular Mary Magdalene, Martha and Mary, and a book by the name of Da Vinci Code, and a movie was created to accuse him of having some inappropriate friendship. As irreverent as all of these allegations are, there's something good that we can draw out of this. One is that we live in a very over-sexualized culture where people can't even understand that you can have a human pure friendship with somebody of the opposite sex, even with the same sex. If two guys are hanging out a lot, it's like, well, you guys having a bromance? And then they're like, well, that girl likes that girl. Well, maybe there's a same-sex attraction thing going on. We've lost the sight of the attractiveness of the human person and that you can have a pure friendship. John Paul II spoke of this in one of his books where he said that in the purgative stage of our spiritual journey, we need to be very careful about human attachments, that they don't draw us to sin. But as we persevere in the spiritual life, he noticed that you can move about in the world with a greater freedom, that sin is always there, but you have a greater freedom in realizing, even in your relationships with members of the opposite sex, that we can lead each other closer to God, that we're all not just occasions of sin. And I remember seeing one of the headlines in the story of John Paul II. It said, it's possible that this woman loved him. Of course she loved him. I'm sure he loved her. I love him. What's not to love about this guy? I mean, come on. At the age of 73, he was skiing in the Italian Alps. He drove a bulletproof car. He fought the forces of evil, and he even wore a cape. I mean, what is not to love about this man? And so we need to listen to his words, because one thing he said is that human friendships can lead hearts to the source of divine charity, which is God himself. And as long as our hearts are pure and our actions are pure, then those friendships are also pure.